So can you quickly describe your working relationship? I heard distributor and supplier.
Basically, we are going full circle again. So because Selenius is doing a lot of manufacturing and sourcing of components for small and medium-sized business in Europe or wherever. So I am buying a lot of components from Selenius, which I can't even get in the European market anymore because all manufacturing shifted to Asia. But I can't easily access the Asian manufacturers because I can't fly to every factory and inspect their quality. So Florian is building the high-quality products here in Asia, shipping us to us. We build the power supplies, and then also some of the power supplies go back to Florian, and he will distribute to the customers in Asia again.
Yeah, so we are the exclusive distributor for East Asia and Oceania. For Huntsman products, you have other distributor for North America and for Europe. And it's our commitment to be the long-term partner for our customers so they can count on that. And that without being a huge organization, because the markets, the niches we are serving just do not allow for huge overhead to do that.
Yeah.
But and again, because of the electronic industry that used to be in Europe in the 70s, 60s, 70s, has completely moved to East Asia. Having access to components and technologies in manufacturing is essential when you want to still be able to adapt your product to the needs. And for instance, today on power ICs, I mean, we have brands that solely sell in China because they say, hey, 90% of my market is anyway in China, so why bothering selling anywhere else?
Why make a spec sheet in
English?
In English. Doesn't exist.
Chinese will do.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with our staff at Selenius and with our interaction and the communication, we can still access this. We have ways to get things out of these and implement them and build this. And that's why I was called like you have all these fancy fusion restaurants, right? Asian European fusion restaurants. You have a fusion power supply, Asian European fusion power supply design.
Best of all worlds.
But that's the world right now. It's
it is.
globalization 2.0, right? We don't exist in a vacuum.
Yes. Yeah. But you will always need a local partner. You need somebody like Selenius, the ladies and gentlemen at Selenius going to the factories, because of course I could maybe find some factory building some coils or some plastic parts, but who's doing the quality inspection? Who makes sure that the quality is consistent over years and so on? That's where you need the local partner.
Yeah, and when I started Selenius, I was the FAE engineer for Osram. And that time I realized that, oh yeah, you have great skill and knowledge in the company. But the bigger companies bringing this knowledge, which maybe in some heads in these big organizations, bringing it to the correct application is a huge task. And unless it's in the direct vision or in the values of the company, my feeling it often doesn't happen.
Yes.
And we realized that especially in Germany, there are many, many hidden champions, small and medium-sized companies that are best in what they do at one particular thing. But these companies don't have the size to have an international organization. And for them to access, I would say, especially power electronics or certain company products and components and manufacturers, very difficult. And so when I started the business when I was 22, I realized, there's a gap. And the gap in particular is high when you want to be able to buy the same component 3, 4, 5 years later. That's even more difficult. I mean, you can go on Alibaba, you can go China sources, you can find all kinds of offerings. But finding exactly the same thing that you bought 3, 4, 5 years ago, not so simple.
No.
And living in Asia for half my life, I have to say, it's not about money. It's about the relationship that you have with your partners. It's about the people that run these family-owned businesses in Asia. Can you build up a relationship to them? Then they are willing to go the extra mile to make this happen, or not just say, "Oh, sorry, I'm no longer there." And that's very difficult to detect from when you are 10,000 kilometers away.
Can you share a situation with a particularly tricky problem or customer and how you solved it?
There might be some stories, but I think it's better if you share them because I get angry if I think about this. Maybe you do it.
Okay. So yeah, there are the smaller issues. I call it the smaller issues is often that because we're in the supply chain, right? So we sell our power supply, and then we receive them on a pallet, and then we ship them to our customers. We usually pack them well, but then our customer sends it to the repair service center somewhere else, and they may use already a different box. And then the thing is tumbling in the box. And if you can see, especially those little delivery guys, in Europe often worse than in Asia, I have to say, but they sometimes think that the parcel might be a soccer ball to play around with.
Yeah.
And then afterwards they call up and say, your power supply is broken.
Or it's getting wet. It was standing in the rain.
Yes.
Because they just received a parcel or put it here in front of storage, starting to rain because it was somewhere
in Southeast Asia in the afternoon. It tends to rain for an hour.
And then he says, oh, your power supply is getting wet. You still give warranty. Yeah, you do? Yeah. No.
Yeah, so these are the smaller issues.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the bigger issues are like when you're in an industrial plant, for instance. You are not alone in that plant. There's other equipment running on the same power grid than yours, and pumps can be particularly notorious because they pull a lot of current, and especially when the pump goes off, the current has to go somewhere, and that leads to peaks and pulses. And sometimes our power supplies are the least defended next items. And if it happens all the time, it's easy to think. But if you have a pump and another pump, and these two pumps, when they shut down at the same time, once every 4 months, and something goes down, that's what we had one time in one application. No matter how much time you spend in your lab, you're not going to find that.
No.
And so that's when you have to jump on planes and with good monitoring equipment and going inside. Yeah, but then if you're in a critical infrastructure, I had to wait. You know, Michael, you're American, right? Your government needed 4 weeks to give me a Homeland Security clearing to get into a water dam on the Colorado River, 12 floors down.
Wow. Well, you look suspicious, Florian.
Oh, yeah. I'm a very dangerous person. And they had to accompany us. But at least they gave us a very fancy helmet thing.
Yeah. So you actually went into the Colorado Dam to fix...
to find the problem. We spent a whole week down there.
Wow.
Monitoring. And it's very noisy, I can tell you. You had to have these Mickey Mouse headsets on them because otherwise your ears running. Yeah. And then you have this very modern power generator from GE, built in 1938.
And they're still using it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Still operating.
That's America.
So that's why I say, but this is, or one time we had an issue where we had a compatibility issue with a uninterruptible power supply UPS for a salmon growing plant, agricultural application. So when they switched from the grid to the UPS, our power supply shut down and hang itself up, but it was a 24/7 operation. We could fix this with a firmware update. The problem was, in order to implement the firmware, we had to get there remove the power supply from the rack, open at least 4 screws, remove a cable, put another cable in, hit a button on the computer, remove the cable, put the other cable in, close the screws, and put it back on the rack. Now, that's one thing. Now you do this 1,000 kilometers south of Santiago de Chile, after 2 hours of gravel road at the end of the Pan America Highway, and you do this on 4, 5, 6 sites. Wow. That's another week's work. And flying from Taiwan to South Chile is about the furthest place you can go. Yeah, but even that we do. So this is the philosophy of going the extra mile to solve the problem when you can solve it. Can you detect that? Can you plan for this in the lab? No.
Are customers flying you out and fronting the cost, or is Selenius or you guys fronting the cost?
This depends on whose responsibility and who's the things. And then normally, again, we're trying to figure out with the customer in a reasonable way. Yeah, that's why we're saying in a reasonable, because also the customer couldn't know some of these things happening. Yeah, but what can you do? You asked me about the entrepreneur thing. Do you know this when you choose to become an entrepreneur? No, you don't. You're faced with a situation, and then the question is, okay, what needs to be done? What's the problem? What needs to be done? Who's going to do it? Who can do it? And that needs, if you need a very decent attitude with your staff. When you hire a staff, and the people will say, oh, this is not part of my job description. Nah, that wouldn't work, right? So you do not know what is going to happen next year or the year after. And this, I would say, is an attitude issue. And I think it's very important that in your team, and be at Selenius, I think everybody's aware of this hands-on problem-solving attitude. And I think in Hansweiler Electronic also, that a thing that you cannot just say, oh, no, that's not, I cannot do this or I cannot do that. No, they want to know who can do what and how we do this to solve these issues. And of course, next time we try to avoid it because it's very inconvenient to fly to South Chile.